Well, hello, and welcome to Bio 211, Anatomy and Physiology 1 at Norwalk Community College. This is my attempt to get you ready for the lab preparation, the last lab for AMP1, which are the muscles. And we do this by introducing what are the different types of muscle cells, namely cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. And I know you're already aware of all of these. You'll probably take a look at the slides inside the lab one more time. But after that, we were going to talk about how it is muscles actually work. And we're focusing specifically on the muscular skeletal system here, meaning those somatic structures, okay, that your body has pretty much voluntary control of. Right? And by now, I want you to make sure that you understand that we're going to ask you to learn 2, 3, maybe 25 muscles of the at least 600 and something, maybe even more, muscles inside the body, meaning skeletal muscle tissue. So it's going to be pretty straightforward. I want to make sure you understand that all muscles have an origin, an insertion, and an action. So when you actually contract the muscle, it does something. It's going to cause something to move because it's pulling on it. And that's the central idea behind all contractile tissue. So enough of the talking. Let's get to the first table here. And this table is going to be really helpful to you. You'll see when I talk about it inside lecture. This is the 3 types of tissue inside the body. Remember, here is skeletal muscle tissue, here's cardiac muscle tissue, and here's smooth. And we're spending all of our time talking about skeletal muscle tissue, but remember the way I've drawn it for you many, many different times. It's linear as opposed to angular. It has multiple nuclei as opposed to single centrally located nuclei. And ultimately, you're going to learn that it actually has striations, and these striations we'll talk about in a few minutes. But how does muscle actually work? Muscle, of course, has an origin, which is the attachment of a tendon to the stationary bone. Notice I said tendon there. I didn't say ligament. Whoops. See, let's get control of you. Okay, it's going to attach into another bone, which means it's passing over a joint. Now, joints, for the purpose of this class, generally speaking, are, how do I say this? They are synovial joints. These are the easiest ones for us to think about. No, they're not always synovial joints. You're going to see many of the muscles we're looking at, and they will not have synovial joints on them. The action or actions of these movements are primarily, are they a flexion or are they an extension or contraction? Okay, flexion to shorten the distance between two things. Extension is to move them away. Okay, so let's think about what that looks like. Well, here's your biceps brachii. This is a muscle that is on your list of structures to learn. So it's going to be called brachii because it has 2 structures it's attached to. Its insertion here is on the radius. And we are going to see that if we contract it, it pulls the radius and therefore the ulna with it. It works because it's a lever, which means all muscles have an effort, which is the contraction, and they're pulling the load, which is the weight of the object plus the forearm, and they're pushing on this fulcrum. And that means that there are going to be 3 different types of levers we're going to have to build eventually, right? I don't know what's going on there. Sorry about that. Okay, let's go like this. But before we get there, I want you to see that muscle has a specific construction. And that construction is, take a look, make sure you understand this cartoon. Tendon, okay, is the sum of, I'm going to point them out to you, so let me go like this. It's the sum of the epimysium surrounding the entire muscle, the perimysium surrounding a bundle of muscles, right? And then look here, you have a muscle fiber itself. Notice that is surrounded. Notice what they do. They take this cartoon here, they bring that over there. Okay, and it's then surrounded by endomysium. And I want you to see that that line is right there. So we have that repeating pattern again. Epi, peri, endo. And endo meaning the insidemost muscle fiber is surrounded by connective tissue. How we make tendons? We put the endomysium, perimysium, and epimysium together to make that tendon. That's what's actually pulling on bone. So muscle doesn't really pull on bone. Muscle pulls on tendon. Get rid of those cartoons. Let's go like this. How does it work? Well, we have to create this thing that's called a sarcomere. And inside lab, I'm going to show you the model of this. And I want you to see that there are thick and thin filaments, and all sarcomeres, let me go like this, all sarcomeres are made up of Z disc to Z disc. Okay? Which means the contractile structures, notice there's a repeating pattern here. Do you see that? That repeating pattern makes up the myofibril. The myofibril attaches now to the cell membrane, thus sarcolemma. Sum all of these together, put some endomysium around that, then put bundles of them together, then you have perimysium, and you put those bundles of bundles together. Lo and behold, that's the tendon that I was telling you about a moment ago. Let's get rid of that cartoon. Well, here's that sarcomere. Here's that Z disc. Here's that M line. You have thick filaments and thin filaments. In lab, we don't ask you to tell us what they are, but thick filaments are myosin, thin filaments are actin, and the myosin pulls on actin. That's the way this works. Down here you have I bands and A bands and H bands. We'll talk about that more inside class. For lab, make sure you see that there's a pattern of thick filaments and thin filaments. The thin filaments are attached to the Z disc. The last thing before we actually get to identifying muscles inside the body is, what is a neuromuscular junction? Well, here is that somatic motor neuron. We've seen that before, haven't we? Oh my God, we've seen it everywhere. Somatic motor neuron. It releases neurotransmitter into or at the surface of the muscle. So neuromuscular junction. Neuromuscular junction. That's all it is. Right? What's going to be important when we're actually talking about this inside class is the neurotransmitter that's released here is acetylcholine. So let's go like that. Let's go like that. Whoops, it was already bolded. So let's go like that. Italicize it. That neurotransmitter, which makes this a cholinergic neuron. Do you get it? Okay, cool. So what's going to happen is it's going to cause a depolarization at the membrane. That horrible word. You'll see what happens in a minute. Let's go like this. So, put the whole story together. Nerve impulse is going to cause acetylcholine release. Acetylcholine is going to cause a depolarization at the membrane. Now we're going to have calcium. This is new information. I don't expect you to know this yet, but calcium will cause the myosin and actin to interact together. And as long as there's ATP present, notice that, notice as long as there's ATP present, okay, we're going to have muscle contraction. And that's what actually causes your muscles to contract. Stop the neurotransmitter release, all of this stops. Run out of ATP, all of this stops. Okay? Now, having told you that, what I want you to do is I want you to think about, at the end of the day, notice this is going to be regulated. So here's our neuromuscular junctions. I don't know why they use these two colors, but at least they're not giving you like the lateral gray horn. Okay? So you can actually have multiple areas inside of muscle fibers activated by different nerves. Okay? It's an important concept, but it's one that you already understand. That's the upper motor neuron that's activated now, our lower motor neuron to activate muscle fibers. So here's that lever system I was telling you about a moment ago. Here's a first-class lever system, second-class lever system, and third-class lever system. Your textbook tells you that third-class lever systems are the least effective. They're the least effective for lifting heavy things, but they're really goddamn effective for moving quickly. Put that finger next to a flame, that arm comes back really quickly. For running, we require a second-class lever. In fact, it is the most efficient lever system inside of our body. We cannot function without this. Remember, I told you earlier, if I cut these off, your foot doesn't function properly. If I cut that off, your foot and leg will not allow you now to ambulate forwards. The first-class lever system here, okay, is going to allow us to hold our head up straight. The important thing for your final exam is how does Mother Nature put these where they are? Meaning, where's the effort, where's the fulcrum, where's the load? Notice the first class is EFL. Second class is FLE. third class is FEL. Okay? So that's the way we want you to think about it. Make sure you don't just memorize it and then mess them up. Okay? FEL stands for third class lever. FLE is second class lever. The last couple of minutes here, what I want to do is I want to tell you about the different shapes. Fascicles of bundles of nerves have a specific shape to them. And what I want to do is I want to go like this, and I want you to, whoops, let's go there, let's go there. So there's the anterior and the posterior, the musculature. And what I want to do is I just want to go through the list of muscles that we need to look at. And I want you to bear with me. I'm going to enlarge this so that you get like the upper portion and the lower portion of the body inside the image. So I'm going to break up your list for you. And I'm going to put little check marks next to the ones you absolutely positively need to know. Okay? So put on my pen, and I'm going inside your actual lab packet. I'm on page 15, and the first muscle at the top of the list is the masseter. So I'm going to put a little check mark next to that. Make sure you know that. Its origin is the zygomatic arch. Its insertion is the mandible. At the very least, you should know that that's the masseter. Okay, you're going to go underneath that. You're going to see that we can't show you the actual diaphragm on this, but you've seen the diaphragm before. What I can show you on your list is the sternocleidomastoid. Okay, so inside lab, I'll make sure I point out the diaphragm for you. It's literally a muscle that actually separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal pelvic. This is actually how we put our regions and quadrants together. That's how I know you know where it is. You also cannot see external intercostals inside this. We're going to have to reflect away some of this tissue. So inside lab, you're going to have to go find images inside your textbook that remove these out of the way. What I can show you, though, are the rectus abdominis. Right? And you're going to see that you actually have this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 groups of muscles that travel from up here. Their origins and insertion. Their origins are up here, and their insertions are down here at the pubic bone. These are a great example of a non-connective tissue bone type of joint. Literally, this white fibrous connective tissue here, that's the joint between each of these groups of muscles. I can also show you the external obliques here. Okay, notice right here, external oblique. These are if you put your hands on your hips, just above your hip bones, that is the external oblique, both on right and left. I cannot show you the external spinae muscles. Okay, the erector spinae muscles. These are groups of muscles. When we actually are in lab, I'll have you go find them, and you're going to see that they're groups. And for whatever reason, your lab packet says vertebra, ribs, and pelvis, skull, vertebra, and ribs. That doesn't mean anything to the average human being. What they are is they are groups of muscles that allow for movement of the different regions of your body. Okay? They're important to think about. How do you actually move your head relative to your torso relative to your legs? I can show you the pectoralis major here. That's pretty straightforward. Most of you already know where that is. Okay. I can show you the latissimus dorsi. These are your lats. These are right here. I can also show you the deltoid, which are your shoulders. Okay. Those are there. You're going to see that these are oversimplified. When you're looking at the origins and the insertion here, these are oversimplified. And in an ideal world, you wouldn't be learning the oversimplified origins and insertions. But remembering for your practical, you want to make sure at the very least you can identify them. Moving down our list, you can see here's our biceps brachii. You actually have two of them, right and left, right? And then you actually have your triceps. We'll have to look at the posterior aspect to see that. Somebody's being funny here. They're putting in Palmaris Longus inside of here. The way you know this is you follow the middle of the hand back to your Palmaris Longus right here. And if you follow it all the way down, it actually goes down to your middle finger. Your iliopsoas you cannot see here. Your gluteus maximus you cannot see here. So the rest of the actual structures are in the lower and posterior portions of the body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go like this. I'm going to hit this right there and go like that. And I'm going to see which ones I can get through. There we go. Cool. So let's keep on with our list here. So we say psoas major and psoas minor. You can't see the entire iliopsoas, iliacus and psoas. But your iliopsoas, let's go like this. For the purpose of this cartoon, this is the psoas muscle right here. If that ever gets tight, heaven help you. Okay, this is literally the attachment of your legs to your body. It actually attaches to the inside brim, anterior surface of the brim of your pelvis. Let's see, Adductor Longus. Notice here is our Adductor Longus, and the way I remember these things is here is my Adductor Magnus right there, and I'm moving inside of that. And you notice there's a mirror image, okay? Adductor Longus, Magnus here, and therefore your longus is right there as well. Sartorius is literally the only muscle in our body that crosses two joints, one here and one down here. It is, okay, also called Taylor's muscle for when you actually cross your knee. Not that you need to know that or anything like that, but take a look at what it's doing. It literally wraps around the entire knee right there. Quadriceps are all of these muscles here. It is the Rectus Femoris, Vastus Lateralis, Vastus Medialis. Okay? And what happens is they all join together to actually hold your leg together. 1, 2, 3. Okay? And there's one underneath here. That's why it's called quad. Okay? For the rest of these, tibialis anterior, I can show you, but everything else is actually in the back. And what they've done, oh, that made it easy for me, right? Oh, look, there's your gastrocnemius right there. But they show it on the anterior surface. But notice the foot. When you look inside your textbook, you're going to see the foot is actually turned outward. Okay, not correct anatomical position. You should not be able to see it. Okay, so let's get rid of this. Let's turn to the next one, and we'll go through the posterior aspect of what's on here. But to do that, let's do this. Let's go all the way up to the top. Let's rearrange this so you can actually see what's going on. And we'll do this again. Okay, so now from the posterior, picking up the pen. Here's that masseter right there. Dink. There's a sternocleidomastoid. Dink. Here's the deltoid from the posterior aspect. Here's the latissimus dorsi, posterior. Here's your biceps brachii. Here's your triceps brachii. That's the one we definitely couldn't show you before. There are your external obliques there. Here's your gluteus maximus, right? Okay. And what I want to do now is see if, whoops, go like this, go like that. Let's make sure I cover. What else is on here? Tensor fascia latae, that's going to be the outside part. Notice, let's go back to the green pen. Tensor fascia latae, this is your Starbucks. It's on the outside here, on both sides. This is what actually makes your legs hold tight towards the midline. You have your biceps femoris. This is the only one that we actually have you pay attention to back here. And I don't know why. So they actually have both pieces to it there. So you have semimembranosus, but that's not, no, it is there. No, semitendinosus. Okay, they have semimembranosus, which is on top of, I'm not even sure that's correct. Semi-mountain on top. That actually looks like it's pointing to something that's incorrect. So in lab, I'll make sure I point that out properly to you. Here, tibialis anterior, you cannot see, but here's your gastrocnemius. Again, I want you to see that it actually has two parts to it. Okay, so those are the muscles we want you to be able to identify. Okay, notice I'm using a really simple cartoon of this, and that should be a hint to the level of complexity I want you to be thinking of. Okay, so this is the actual 211 lab that I'm going to save as the muscular lab. And we've gone through a fair bit here. So we went through what are the basic construction rules, what are the actual 25 or so muscles that we want you to be able to identify inside lab. Okay, I hope this gets you ready for lab. Have a nice day. Bye.